So the first one I have right here is the frontal bone. The next one is the parietal bones. And then the next one on the side we have here is the temporal bone. And then on the back we have the occipital bone. And then the next one we have is the coronal suture, or the sagittal suture. And then the next one we have is the squamous suture, which goes around the side if it was labeled. And then we have the lambdoid suture, which would go across the back side. And then the next one we have is the nasal bone. And then we have the maxilla bone, which goes across the teeth. And then we have the mandible. Then we have the mental foramen, which is this hole right here. And then we have the mandibular ramus, which goes across right here. And the next one we have is the mandibular notch, which goes in this area. And then we have the mandibular condyle, which is this part right here. And then we have the coronoid process of the mandible, is right here. And then the zygomatic bone is the cheekbones. And then the ethmoid bone is right here on the inside. The next one we have is the lacrimal bone, which goes right here in front of that one. Then we have the nasolacrimal, which is around the same area, in this area. And then we have the supraorbital foramen, which would be right here if it was labeled with the holes. And we have the infraorbital foramen, which is these holes right here. And then we have the inferior orbital fissure, which would be inside, just inside right here, like these holes. And then the next one we have is the vomer, which would be inside here of the nose and this area. And then we have the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, which is right here, near the top. And then we have the middle and inferior conch, would be the little loops right here. And then we have the anterior nasal spine, which is right here. And then we have the external auditory meatus, which is this hole right here. And then the next one we have is the glabella, which is the forehead basically, right here. And then the next one we have is the greater and lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. And that would be inside the eye socket, like the upper and lower parts, like the greater and lesser wing in this area. And then the next one we have is the optical canal, which is the back part where it goes back into the skull. And then we have the foramen rotundum, and that is on the inside. So let me open him up. Okay, so the first one we have would be up inside the skull, this first hole right here. And the next one would be the foramen ovale, and then that one would be right here, the bigger hole. And then the foramen lacerum would be this lower part, which is connected to the carotid canal, which is inferior to the carotid canal. And the next one we have is the foramen spinosum, which would be the small hole right here. And then we have the carotid canal itself, which is right there. And then the next one we have is the jugular foramen, or foramen. And then, so that one would be in this area, like a hole in this area. And then we have the palatine bone, which when I flip them over, you can see that it's right in this area. And then we have the incisive fossa, which is this little area up here. And then we have the greater palatine foramen, which is this hole right here. And then we have the foramen magnum, which is this hole. And if I flip this one over, we have the mastoid process. And then we have the styloid process. And then the next one we have is the styloid mastoid foramen, which is right here. And then we have the crista galli, which is right here. And then we have the cribriform plates, which is beside it. And then we have the sella turcica, and that is right here. And then we have the internal auditory meatus, which is this hole right here that connects to the external auditory meatus, right there. And then that completes the 50 words that we have for this week of the skull.